Should we feel sorry for MAHA moms, the women that are bamboozled by RFK Jr.'s lies? Or are they willing dupes of an obvious grifter? I have my theories and a personal reason why. I'm Amanda Marcotte. Welcome to Standing Room Only. MAHA moms say they back Donald Trump and RFK because they want kids to be healthier. MAHA is HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy's shorthand for Make America Healthy Again. But as the new school year starts, there's one big reason that I don't think the MAHA movement is really about the kids: the return of the presidential fitness test.
Well, I'm delighted to be here with some of the truly great sports legends of all time. Lawrence Taylor, you look good. Triple H, here he is. Oh, that's still very strong. Harrison, where are you, Harrison? He's a handsome guy, by the way. It's usually not my thing, but he is a good-looking sucker.
I just hope that Harrison Butker has screaming nightmares about that. No, I would.
I'm pleased to announce that we're officially restoring the Presidential Fitness Test and the Presidential Fitness Award, and it's going to be a very big thing.
And I'm so grateful to President Trump for bringing back this tradition. And for me, it was a huge item of pride when I was growing up.
Don't get me wrong. There is much that RFK and his minions are doing that is more dangerous. Helping Trump take away Medicaid from millions, cutting $500 million in vaccine research, blocking access to COVID vaccines, suggesting that vaccines cause autism, which is a flat-out lie. But there is some twisted narrative that paints all of this evil behavior as well-intended. You could say that RFK believes his own disinformation. The MAHA moms certainly do. But you can't tell me that anyone thinks the presidential fitness test is good for kids. There's a reason that Barack Obama ended it in 2012. It's ritual humiliation that couldn't be better designed to traumatize kids. Believe me, that's how I experienced it as a kid. Look, as an adult, I'm fairly athletic. I work out nearly every day, and I'm not gonna win any gold medals on my spin bike, but frankly, just getting here was a win. You see, as a child, I was severely asthmatic, and the presidential fitness test was a terror for me. They expected me to do all these feats of strength, like pull-ups and shuttle runs, and I couldn't do that. And of course, all the other kids laughed at me. And then I was a couch potato for years. I was hobbled by this shame even as I outgrew the asthma. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details of how I overcame this. Just know that as an adult, I've realized that exercise can be fun and empowering. And I would have known that a lot sooner if I hadn't been bullied so much as a kid in the name of fitness. Trump loves bullying, so of course he brought the presidential fitness test back. But this is part of a larger MAHA project. Instead of caring about health, they only care about wellness. And the measure of wellness isn't your blood work or resting heart rate, it's all about how you look. And children are not exempt from this hot or not contest.
You know, you look at the pictures of what kids look like back
Yes.
then, and it's almost like a different species. 8 out of 10 of our kids cannot qualify for military service. This whole generation of kids is damaged by chronic disease. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today, as I walk down the street, and I see these kids that are just overburdened with mitochondrial challenges, with inflammation. You can tell from their faces, from their body movements, and from their lack of social connection. And I know that that's not how our children are supposed to look.
If every time I looked at a child, they were socially disconnected and had weird body movement, I would know the problem is me, that I'm scaring children. Yeah, that's a good way to get kids to run, have RFK chase them. That bit about mitochondrial challenges is a conspiracy theory that is passed around by all these wellness influencers, including Surgeon General nominee Casey Means, who we did a video about. I'll be speaking about this later with my guest on Pass the Mic, Amy Larocca. Look, we all know we need to eat better and exercise more and drink our giant diet drink. But the MAHA movement is not about improving public health. The Trump administration has decimated programs that improve access to healthy foods, while rolling back regulations that reduce pollution. MAHA is just a pretext for stripping healthcare away from millions of Americans. In the extremist MAHA view, you don't need doctors or medicine, just eat better. And if you die, it's your fault for not doing more push-ups. Just listen to Zen Honeycutt, a prominent MAHA mom who runs a group called Moms Across America and absolutely worships RFK Jr.
If Kennedy's able to do what he wants to do as at the head of the HHS, we won't even need health care. I'm saying we won't be going to the doctors because we won't be sick.
I don't know what to say to that. Dr. Mehmet Oz made a fortune hawking useless supplements before Trump appointed him to run Medicaid and Medicare. And now he's out there making excuses for Trump's cuts to Medicaid by saying that all we need is to exercise more.
You walk 15 minutes a day, you save the country $100 billion in health expenses.
It also gives me sunlight. The sunlight is medicine.
Sunlight is medicine.
Yep.
It is easier to climb rocks if you're not wearing jeans.
How do we get down?
On the surface, some of these comments may not seem like that big a deal. Walking is good for you, but context also matters. RFK and Dr. Oz are actively trying to cut off healthcare access for millions of people. RFK is attacking vaccine research. He is driving all the talent out of the CDC because they got in the way of his attempts to destroy vaccination programs. Kennedy's view of health doesn't come from doctors, it comes from wellness influencers.
We need to stop trusting the experts, right?
At the White House yesterday, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. released the Make America Healthy Again Commission report. Among the MAHA activists in attendance, influencer known as the Food Babe.
As soon as I went from an ultra-processed food diet to a real food diet, everything changed. I went off every single prescription drug. I started to live a life that I never thought was possible. My brain was clearer. I became athletic. I started to excel at my job.
I don't trust anyone who will never eat another Dorito when they say my brain is clear. Wellness influencers try to sell you stuff by saying that you're not skinny or sexy enough. Unsurprisingly, these people also see health as a competition between literal children. A group called MAHA Action celebrated the return of the presidential fitness test by saying it's good for kids to feel humiliated and rejected. Never mind that the experts say that kids like me avoided exercise because of the shame.
This week, President Trump revived the presidential fitness test.
So we are closing out the morning by taking the test themselves. We've got kids lined up, and it's very important to have adults who just observe, correct?
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the kids are on the mat.
Do you think Charlie can pass the presidential fitness test?
He told me he's more of a coach.
This is why I have no sympathy for the MAHA moms. The press often pities them like they mean well, but they're too dumb and they fall for RFK shtick. But I think they like hearing that they know better than the doctors. It is quite an ego boost. And sure, some of them are overcompensating for their insecurities and fears. Some, however, are those moms who treat child rearing like it's a competition to have the best kid. They're like pageant moms who hide behind wellness. Either way, there's an old term for people like MAHA moms, useful idiots, and it's kids who pay the price. My guest today is Amy Larocca. She's a New York Times journalist and the author of How to Be Well. Thank you for joining me for Standing Room Only, Amy.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So your book was really fun. I enjoyed reading it. It's basically a journey through all these wellness treatments and also wellness culture and what it kind of means culturally. And I wanted to ask you, with that kind of background, what do you think is the difference between wellness and health?
Oh, there's a huge difference. You can be perfectly healthy and not what the wellness industry would call well. Health could be determined by any number of factors. You could have the absence of disease, for example. You could have all of your vital statistics be within so-called safe ranges. That doesn't necessarily mean that you feel very good, that you are active, that whatever the metrics of within your community are, do you look a certain way? Do you present a certain way? Do you participate in certain activities? Do you, do certain kinds of skincare? Do you eat a certain way? Those are the markers of wellness, which is different than health. So it's not just the absence of disease, and it's not just the presence of healthy vital signs that make you well.
And I feel like wellness has risen up for a few reasons, social media being one.
Big one.
But do you think that there is something about the healthcare industry as it stands that has made space for people to sort of treat wellness as an acceptable substitute for health?
I think what it is that wellness has become a luxury category. And I think that's really in many ways replaced health, but I think it's become an aspirational retail category as much as it's become about health. And I think that's where the huge gap lies, and that's what's sort of weird and scary and dangerous about it, is that I think of it often as the process of buying your own body back and sort of treating yourself and your insides and your outsides as something that is for sale and endlessly improvable if you're willing to spend the time and, crucially, willing to spend the money.
And that's what's a little bit scary about people like RFK, who obviously are more into wellness than they are into health. He's running Health and Human Services.
Well, what's really scary about that is I really do sort of fundamentally believe on some very, very deep level that it's not shocking that it's a Kennedy who would take it in this direction, because wellness is inextricably linked to privilege. And the pillars of good health in America, and you asked about what it is about the way the healthcare system works in this country that makes it possible to have this wellness industry. And it's very connected to how different health outcomes are for the privileged in America. Mm-hmm. And we had this incredible example of that in the case of COVID. How soon into COVID did we learn that the country was experiencing very, very, very different pandemics based on your socioeconomic and your racial situation? COVID was a very different disease for wealthy white people than it was for brown and black people of lesser means. Yeah. It's a completely different disease. It affected the communities differently. The outcomes were drastically different. And it kind of still amazes me that people just were sort of like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
that's
it's weird
how it is. And then the next thing we knew, we have a HHS secretary whose name is synonymous with wealth, power, and privilege.
And this healthy,
big teeth and all that kind of thing. And he is stripping away some of the more fundamental rights, I think, of what it is to be healthy in America. Because people are always asking me, since I've published this book and been traveling around talking about it, what about this? What about that? Pilates versus yoga, or this versus that? And it's like, that's icing on the cake. I mean, what makes a person healthy, what makes a person well, is the access to things that you wouldn't even really think about if you were talking about wellness. Clean water, access to health care, decent food, even the ability to rest, which again, during COVID was something we saw that a lot of people were able to shelter in place, a lot of people weren't. A lot of people were working very, very, very hard. There's just drastically different experiences of being American and what that means in terms of your access to care. Yeah. And so I think you will only talk about taking fluoride out of drinking water if you've never wondered if you could afford the dentist.
One of the things you make me think of is like a lot of these wellness influencers love to talk about toxins, but actually, which is this vague category that it could be anything. But what we learned about actual health problems that is interesting as kind of an environmental issue is stress is actually a much more serious issue for day-to-day health, which again, working class and poor people endure way more stress, which is part of the reason
for sure.
they're
I mean,
less
look,
healthy.
everybody endures stress, and everyone's got the problems they've got, and family stress, and all. People have a lot of stress, and stress comes in a lot of different packages. Toxins are real. Toxins are also imagined. So, all of these things exist on a spectrum. So, I think it's important to say that all of these things are real for the people who are experiencing them. So it's not that you can't be poisoned by dirty water and dirty air. We've seen that in Flint, Michigan. We've seen that all over, but maybe not the way that a lot of wellness marketers would have you believe. Also, crucially, you can't remove these so-called toxins in the manners that these wellness marketers would have you believe. So not only do the toxins not work the way we're constantly being told they do, they're also not removable in the ways that we're told they're removable. So that's, that's very crucial. And stress is very, very, very real. The better off you are, the more access you are likely to have to resources that might help you manage it. Time off, mental health care, whatever it is.
And less baseline worry about things like money.
Yeah. Money, childcare, food, shelter, all of the really, really, really basic fundamental things.
So I take a very dim view of a lot of these MAHA moms. I think that they are caught up in status. I think they're caught up in ego. I think a lot of the wellness stuff that they're into is not actually about sincere concern about health. Maybe they don't admit that to themselves, but I want to hear from you because you did more research on this than anybody. What do you think is really driving the MAHA mom, specifically moms?
I think about this a lot because, there's so much fear, and there's so much fear when you become a mother. And this is something I write about in my book, and I am a mother, and I am a mother to a child who is incredibly sick, and I've seen the faces I've seen the reactions of women when I tell them that I had a sick kid, and I've seen that they wonder if it's my fault. And, they don't want to, but they do. And it's like, well, maybe you weren't organic enough. Maybe you weren't.
Oh my God.
And it's it happens. And so I also know that whatever you tell yourself when you are a mother, you will always wonder, did I do something wrong? And that will always sort of haunt you. So while I agree with you about the MAHA mom, I try and approach it with some empathy, that being a mother is terrifying, and it's a vulnerability that I didn't anticipate or expect before I had children, that you're so scared and you would do anything to protect them. That said, protecting them also involves using your noggin, right? And being what really makes sense here and what is logical. I think there is a kind of status thing involved in saying, I don't just lie down and take the vaccination schedule as it's given to me. I think it sort of can give this false sense of you're extra momming it or something. I don't know. It's in the way that wellness can be super health. I mean, I don't want my own vaccination. I don't know about vaccinations. I want the nice doctor that I selected.
A bespoke vaccination schedule.
To tell me when to vaccinate my children, and then I want to vaccinate the shit out of them before I send them off into the world. I mean, that is what my logical mind tells me to do.
Yeah.
And, if you assume from the sort of base level that mothers are driven by a desire to protect their children, that these are women who are driven by that desire, and how it points them in that direction is truly baffling. Another thing that really baffles me about it is how sort of individuated it is. Of course, with vaccinations, how little it considers the greater good, like how little it considers public health, like how little it considers what it means to exist in community and in society.
I think that might even be the answer then, because like a lot of the reason that the kind of wellness industry treats health as a competition in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so if you assume
many
you're
ways.
trying to compete with other kids, it weirdly makes a counterintuitive sense that you would not want to participate in public health, which kind of like scientifically that doesn't make any sense, but I can sort of see there's like a weird model where you're like, no, I'm not doing what all those other kids.
Yeah, like I've got my kid here and I'm gonna like, and you know, you go like a little berserk, you've got your kid and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna protect this kid and that's my sort of mission. But you hope that like your lizard brain doesn't totally take over and you kind of feel like, you know, you can get like really weird instincts about like protecting your kids, but then you don't necessarily have to follow them, right?
No. Listen to doctors.
Yes, listen to your doctor. Listen to the person with like the medical degree who like, who studied a lot.
It is not out to get your kids.
No one is, I mean, that was the thing. I felt that way very much about like childbirth too, where I know how conflicted people feel about, you know, childbirth in America and the medicalization of childbirth. And obviously everyone's perspective is incredibly personal, and my perspective is that of someone whose child and self would no longer be here if we hadn't, you know, if I had chosen to give birth at home or anything like that, we both would have died. It's not a question. It's not the hospital is 5 minutes away. It wasn't a question of minutes. It was a question of seconds, like all of those things. So, and that's with no advance warning. And so, so I, you know, feel incredibly privileged to have been able to give birth in a medical setting. And I know a lot of women feel very oppressed by the medicalization of childbirth, whereas I see it as a tremendous privilege to be safe and to know that your baby's going to be safe. So it all sort of depends on where you come from and what your situation is. So I try and like sort of imagine the mind of the MAHA mom as someone who's like been through I don't know what and is like operating with some amount of fear, vulnerability, terror. I mean, the world is pretty scary right now. And like that's their kind of lizard brain fear reaction and like huddle around, protect.
And they have a lot of people that are willing to validate that.
Right now, they sure do. And what's horrible about it is that it's just very dangerous for the greater good.
Yeah, and so for their kids.
For their children and for the greater good. So it's not like they're just like sort of off having their like journey. And it's like they can just go off and have their journey. I mean, it has really scary implications. Really scary.
So obviously, what we're seeing happen right now is RFK is, he's like just decimating a lot of healthcare stuff. Yeah. He's doing serious damage to the CDC. He's trying to like keep us from getting the COVID vaccine. Yeah. He's undermining vaccinations in general. And how do you see him using these concepts of wellness to sort of aid what to me looks like a really obvious assault on just basic healthcare provision?
Well, I think he's legitimizing a lot of very fringe concerns and bringing a lot of these ideas into the mainstream in a way that's very dangerous. I mean, I think you can find someone out there, whatever theory you want to come up with, you could find someone out there saying it. You just don't typically put them in charge of large government agencies.
No.
So I think he's just taking a lot of fringe ideas that don't have terrific scientific backing and being able to put them into action. And that's what's really scary about it. So it's not that these ideas are his even, or, you know, necessarily, they're not unique. They've been there the whole time. That they fly in the face of what the evidence and what reality is demonstrating is so frustrating to watch, right? Because you can present reality and it's like, you know, no one wants to hear it, right? It's like, we can show you all the ways in which the COVID vaccine is amazing. And it's also very confusing, right? Because Trump could also be claiming credit for stopping COVID, right? I mean, he greenlit the vaccine program.
Yeah. And now they're cutting similar programs.
Yeah, so it's like there is no sort of, you're just in, I don't know what's happening, right? Like it's just all over the map.
We're on a terrible roller coaster. I don't want to depress people too much. Yes. Your book is actually really fun and delightful while getting into some of these deeper issues. So for our mic drop question, I wanted to ask, you put yourself through a lot.
Yeah.
To explore the world of wellness. Out of all the treatments and things you tried, what did you find the most embarrassing or ridiculous?
Well, getting a colonic was horrible. And I really, I have to say, because I was a fashion editor for so long, let me tell you, a fashion person loves a colonic. They're never not getting a colonic.
That's so weird.
They love the colonic.
For those who don't know, what is a colonic?
It's basically like having a hose put up your butt and having everything just it's removed from your colon. It doesn't really square with a lot of things that we talk about with say the gut, right? Oh, well, you're building your flora and your microbiome, but I'm going to stick a garden hose up there and just wash it out. What a lot of these kind of former colleagues of mine, these fashion editors would say is it gives you a feeling of lightness. It's a purge sensation, right? It's a real sort of pillar of wellness. And if you do the juice cleanse, when they were very popular, they'd be it's not, we don't really consider it complete until you've done the colonic. Because there was such a consistent description of this lightness that people experienced, I was okay, I'm going to try this and see if I experience this kind of, it was it's sort of euphoria that people would describe, a kind of high. I'm just gonna say I did not experience a high. That did not happen.
That's good. That's good. That makes me feel better.
Much to my doctor's great relief, she was just oh God, do not do this. You cannot find a medical professional who is gonna say, this is a good idea.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I think people will be very entertained.
Yeah, don't do it.
My guest today has been Amy Larocca. Her book is called How to Be Well. She writes for the New York Times. Thank you again for joining us for Standing Room Only, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me.
And don't forget to stick around for Encore. We have a fun song about all of this that you will enjoy. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Hey everyone, coming to you from Latchkey in Philadelphia. That's my partner's record store. He's really excited. I've got the Duran Duran t-shirt on, which is one of his all-time favorite bands. But that is not the band I'm recommending today. The band I'm recommending today is a newer band. The song is called Sports. It's by a band called the Viagra Boys. The Viagra Boys are an interesting band. They're Swedish, but their lead singer is an American who grew up in Sweden, kind of went back and forth between Sweden and America. So he does have an American accent. A lot of his references, I think, are a little bit more American. And that is why the band has had a lot of popularity in the United States. They're a very new band. They are a little bit post-punky, a little bit indie rock. They do a bunch of different sounds. Sports is very much in their post-punk, almost arty style. It's just him going sports over and over, and then they do talky, singy lyrics. It's a hilarious song. It is very satirical. It's about sports culture in the United States, and I think for a lot of people that felt oppressed by sports culture in the United States, it's a very fun song that's making fun of jock culture and the way that everyone is expected to exalt athletes. I'm not against athletes. I'm not against sports. It's still fun to make fun of it a little bit. We should have a laugh about these sorts of things. We saw them live a couple of years ago. It was a great show. They're definitely worth checking out. They're the Viagra Boys, and the song is called Sports. If you want more Standing Room Only episodes, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Standing Room Only started as a newsletter, and it's free to read. Click the link to subscribe. I love tips. These political battles are playing out in our local communities. Your family, your school, your neighborhood. If you have a story, go ahead and drop me a line. Leave it in comments, and don't forget to subscribe.